faded away as I looked around at the field, seeing it for what it really was. Goblins, made of straw and sticks, lay on their sides, chopped into little pieces or still burning from emeralds and my initial attack. It had taken us all morning to make enough of them so that all of us could have some fun. I resented having to stop. What was the point of being a war fairy if you still had to do what your mum said? Isadora! If I had thought she'd been angry before, it was nothing compared with now. When she got like that, it wasn't worth defying her. Phooey! Grams pulled off her balaclava and threw it onto the ground. Isla sighed and unstrung her bow. She pulled an arrow out of the straw man closest to her and slipped it back into her quiver. Emerald lay down where she was and put a wing over her face. Emerald. Disappointment tinged my thoughts. She shrugged a shoulder and mumbled into my mind. Last time we got in trouble, she wouldn't roast me any meat. You have fire for breath. You can roast your own meat. I walked over to her and shoved her flank. Yes, but when I do it, it's all burnt on the outside. When your mum does it. She stopped thinking in words and, instead, a picture of a roast, so tender it was falling off the bone, popped into my head. I sighed. Mum's roasts were almost worth being good for. Almost. And that was part of my problem. I hadn't found anything worth being good for since I had come back through the veil. Oh, come on, I said to Isla and Grams. We'd better get up there before she has an apoplectic fit. The two of them followed me as I traipsed from the field. It was only the fact that they were behind me that stopped me from kicking my feet in childish rebellion. Mum was waiting for us in the kitchen. Her crossed arms and her tapping foot made it clear her mood had not improved in the last few minutes. Sabby stood next to her in an identical posture, but I knew her foot was tapping for a different reason. I hadn't invited her to our little party because I hadn't wanted to distract her from her study for her first-year exams. I could see now that that had been a mistake. Sit! Mum pointed at the kitchen table. My former teacher, Redismus, was already there. Scruffy's bottom hit the floor and he sat to attention. Isla and Grams slid meekly into their seats. I pulled mine out and flipped it around 180 degrees before straddling it. My elbows rested on the top of the chair back while I investigated my nails. I saw Sabby shake her head, a small smile quirking the corners of her mouth as she took the chair next to me. Mia let out a little mew and scampered over the table to Sabby. She hissed down at Sabby's familiar, Phantom, and then climbed up Sabby's arm to her neck. Sabby winced as Mia's paws started running through her hair. I pulled a face in sympathy. Mia's grooming, while sweet, was normally very painful. Redismus stood and crossed to Mum's side. He pulled her stiff body into his arms, whispered something into her ear, and then planted a kiss on her lips. I was still getting over the shock of finding out that the two of them had become an item. I'll be off, he said, looking around at the rest of us. The smile he was trying to hide was starting to break through. No doubt he wanted to get out of there before Mum turned her bad mood onto him as well. Mum waited till he had left before she began. What in the great dark sky did you think you were doing? I stared at her in sullen silence. I mean, it had been pretty obvious what we'd been doing. Grams raised one hand in the air and, when Mum looked at her, said, We were having some good old-fashioned fun. I felt a smile.